we'll have it more of a discussion format. So anytime, feel free to raise your hand and or join in, ask questions. This is about information for you, not only for us to, we want to share knowledge with one another through one of these type of a format. So it's more of a discussion. The panelists are leading this and talking about all different types of items that go on in the service industry. So today for our panelists, we have Josh and Brian from Laney's will be joining us, as well as Jessica and Jim from Robert Gibb and Sons. So Dwayne, with that, I will let you take over.
Thank you, Judy. First of all, I'd like to get introductions here with folks from Laney's. So Joshua and Brian, can you guys tell me a little bit about what your company does and what you do?
Sure, Brian, you want to take that one?
Sure. Well, Laney's really does a lot of things. We have a service department of about 25 technicians with a call center, 2 dispatchers, a service manager and a technical service manager. Myself, I manage the call center. I have some other duties at Laney's too. Josh sits on the other side of the building. He really kind of dispatches and an administrator for some of the retail side of the business, the commercial and remodel and construction side of the business.
Okay.
Yeah, that about covers it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Robert Gibb, Jessica, you kind of tell us what kind of about the company and what your role is.
Well, my role here is the director of sales and service, and as Laney said, we kind of do a full range of specialties. We have the service department. We have about 30 technicians in our service department, as well as a light commercial install department, a residential install department, and then we have our big mechanical division that is led by somebody else. And our call center right now is about 3 people, and then we have a full-time billing support person in our call center as well. And it's fun to be on here today because I've actually worked with Brian and Josh before, so some good talent over at Laney's.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I've got a few questions I want to ask just to start the discussion, and the audience is more than welcome to enter questions into the chat window. So you definitely want this to be have a lot of participation from the panel as well as the attendees. So I'll start off with Josh. How are you currently scheduling service calls? Are you using like a schedule board or any kind of mapping tools and that kind of tools do you have?
What we found for our retail and larger jobs, a graphical schedule board works very well. But once you get beyond, I would say 2 to 3 individual service calls or 2 individual jobs per technician, it becomes a little bit of a hindrance. So on our service side, we use essentially it's a Great Plains application wherein we'll enter a service call with an unassigned designation to it, and then our CSRs as well as dispatchers on the service end will have a predetermined amount of service calls that they can handle in a given day, keeping in keeping in mind that certain work ends have to be set aside for. So essentially there will be a set number of service calls scheduled, and then at the beginning of the day, I think everybody can agree to this, that what the end of the day looks like as opposed to the beginning of the day is almost 2 completely different things in service. Whereas when it's a larger job, half-day jobs are bigger, that's a little bit more consistent. So right now it's a very flexible schedule, but I find that a graphical schedule board doesn't work really well for our service needs on our end.
Okay. Jessica, do you have any other what you guys are doing?
We do something similar. We're using the Key to Act schedule board, and then as well as a GPS, so that we can, again, see where the technicians are at and, yeah, I agree with Josh. You can have it all laid out on a schedule, and I mean, the definition of service is usually emergencies. So they're not planned for, but you need to adjust and be flexible. So we do schedule a number of calls by technician and kind of get them their days planned, leaving a little bit of flexibility and room for the emergency calls that do come in. And so we find that it's working well. But yeah, it's rarely do you have a day where it starts out how you're going to finish. And we actually do use the same schedule board for our light commercial and our residential departments. And so, that works really well because, like Josh said, they're usually going to be going to a job and they're going to stay there consistently and not get pulled off. And for our large mechanical, I believe, they're just using the resources within GP for their job information and then getting the information to their foreman, who then are kind of leading the way. So with our big mechanical jobs, a schedule board just really probably isn't going to be the most useful use of the tool.
Jessica,
Now,
I do have a question. This is Josh. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Dwayne, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, go ahead.
Nope.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, Jess. Well, good to hear from you, Jess. It's been a while. But now my question for you is, because I do use the Key to Act graphical board as well. Well, we're transitioning into that. Do you find that you found a way to make that work fairly seamlessly because your service department is about the same size as ours?
It is. Seamlessly, I would say no. There's always those challenges of moving when you have to move things around. It's a little bit more cumbersome, and with the amount of technicians we have, seeing that all on a screen to actually have that layout for, besides the day you're looking at, it becomes more difficult. I don't think that part of the schedule board is really, it's not user friendly for a dispatch planning ahead as much as when you're trying to look at your department as a whole.
Correct. Yes, and I found that for light commercial, retail, 2 to 3 weeks planning ahead is perfect for the Key to Act schedule board. I have not found a way to make that work. Well, and maybe it's just that in service you really don't have. It's not really feasible to schedule out definitively out beyond a few days, besides a workload.
Right.
You really don't know who is
Right.
going to be available. Yes. So I've been
emergency scheduled out more than.
Yeah.
So is this more of you want to schedule the workout, but maybe not as much scheduling the technician for the work? Is that what you're referring to?
That is correct. It's easy to
Right.
schedule because you know what you can get done in a day, but rarely do you know before that day starts who is going to end up doing it.
Okay. Right.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
And so
right.
when you assign it to look at it on the graphical board, then you're relying on your technicians to be syncing all the time if
Right.
you make a change, because they've got to know that. So it's
Okay.
I agree with Josh. Like it's not great for planning ahead, because in service you typically don't want to schedule things out really, if they're true service, more than three days, because if you start doing it that far out, chances are you've given that customer a chance to look someplace else because their needs are more urgent than
Right.
a week.
Yeah, especially for urgent calls, for maybe a system down or something like that. Maintenance calls may be a little bit easier for scheduling out, but for emergency call outs, yeah, you definitely want to take those as soon as possible. Okay. So when you want to clarify, using graphical schedule board, or are you using the new product schedule?
We're using the new product schedule.
Okay. That's what I want to say. And then Josh, you're transitioning.
Yeah, we had the GSB graphical schedule board, and that is no longer supported. So we are transitioning to the Key to Act schedule board.
Right. Just to clarify the products you're using there. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So now, is your layout? Are you guys one location or multi locations? How's your company structured? Is this?
Josh here. Yeah, we
For
are
us
scheduled.
at GIB, we
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Jess.
For GIB, we're located out of Fargo. However, we do have a Bismarck shop that's a lot smaller location, so we can utilize it the same, but we really aren't. That's so small that they're kind of
Mhm.
self-sufficient, and
Okay.
so we're pretty much located in Fargo.
Okay. What about you, Josh?
We are also located primarily in Fargo. We do have a sister operation in Detroit Lakes, about an hour away, but they run independently. They're effectively their independent business. So we run in the metro area here, and yeah, everything is. We try to keep all of our service work, especially within say 20 to 30 miles of Fargo.
Okay. So we kind of answered a few of these questions I've kind of had here as we went along. The dispatching, how do you communicate with your technicians? Do you utilize mobile tech to assign calls? How do your communication between your techs going from call to call? Go ahead, Jessica.
We are utilizing mobile tech, and so every call is scheduled and put on to the technicians. Most of them are using an iPad or smartphone.
Okay.
And then our dispatchers also kind of communicate, old school way of phone calls and text messages and email.
Okay.
I mean, each technician is so different that they've kind of learned which works best for each individual technician.
Okay. Josh?
Actually, Brian, do you want to grab this one? I believe we're still using mobile tech.
It's pretty much the same as Laney's, is what Jessica described. Our dispatchers start the morning looking at their dispatch board. They dispatch calls, the first round of calls to the technicians through their iPads on mobile tech, and then they communicate with them the rest of the day. When the technician's done with their first call, they simply call in to the dispatcher and say, I'm ready for another one. That call will be dispatched to them, probably based a little bit on geography. If you're in North Fargo, you might try to keep them there as long as it makes sense for that technician. They just communicate then by phone throughout the day, and calls are dispatched to the iPad.
Okay. So what kind of other information or tools would be helpful to make this scheduling, more efficient for your technicians? Josh?
Well, when it comes to scheduling, first and foremost, you have to connect skill sets, and
Yeah.
then after you've reached that, then it's going to be, I think physical geography. So I mean, I think we all tend to use GPS. We rely upon that heavily just to know where our workforce is. But on a service standpoint, I think if there was boy, I don't have a really great answer for that right now.
Okay.
As far as what would make things easier.
So the
It's just
skill
there's so much.
set information, you kind of know what jobs
That,
a technician
yeah,
can handle. Now on the location, do you utilize the GPS as far as knowing where the technician is currently located?
correct. Yeah, we will
Okay.
just we'll know generally
Yeah.
just by their
Proximity. Yes.
address,
Okay.
and then we match it up to the closest qualified technician for that particular job or that
Right.
particular service call.
Yes. So you're utilizing the mapping function in the schedule product, or you're in graphical schedule board. I apologize. So
Yeah, at this point we are. Then we have
yeah.
a separate
Okay.
GPS.
Yeah. Okay. What about Jessica? What about your?
We have the capabilities to using the mapping tool. We haven't yet. We're still using just the schedule board itself, and then looking at our GPS that we have outsourced through a different GPS company.
Okay.
And I agree with Josh. Like, I don't know that there's any magic tool out there that's going to ever make it easier to schedule service, because it relies so heavily upon what is the service call and where is it at and how quickly do they need service. The one thing I would like to see that would make it easier is when we have a lot of bigger accounts that sometimes it's a service call, but there's multiple appointments for the one call.
Mhm.
And it does get cumbersome and fills up technicians' iPads and stuff with, it doesn't seem like the flow is really good for closing out those appointments and to getting them on their schedules. Like sometimes, if in service you can plan that they're going to be there each day, but if you're not putting in a specific time because they're going to be working it in, it gets hard to schedule that because you have to deal with the double booking function. And so just a little bit more flexibility in that, in ease of completing those appointments so that they're not sitting out there. Because what happens on the schedule board is you get some of those and it kind of fills up your so-called unassigned, which is a good tool. I agree with what Josh and Brian said is, you kind of want that sitting there because you're going to accomplish more calls in a day if you are utilizing who's closest and stuff like that. And to me, the schedule board does get a little bit difficult with that.
Okay.
This is Brian. I want to just add one other thing to efficiency. One of the things that's happening now is we have customers in the service department waiting for our call throughout the day. People do not answer their phones as much as they used to. We have yet to go to a texting system, and I'd like to in the future get to maybe a really efficient, email to text or talk to text or something like that. People are out running their errands or they're at work and they're waiting to hear from us. They can't always answer their phone or choose not to. And then we have technicians kind of stuck during the day waiting for that call, and the dispatcher's waiting to get a hold of that customer who's sort of next in line and expecting us, but they're not always available. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. I know I've experienced something like that with the
I
doctor's
agree.
office.
I agree with that 100%, Brian.
Yeah, hopefully in the future we can find ways to be a little more efficient communicating with the homeowners or the service customers.
Yes. Okay. So more of the customer communication would help with getting technicians properly dispatched.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So that's that would be a nice tool to have. As how, that goes back to, the question here is how often are your techs, are they 100% billable throughout the week? Is this a challenge to maintain, keeping them as efficient as they possibly can be?
Yeah, it really is. This is Brian again, and we're trying to actually now versus a year ago and in the past, we're loading up our schedule more and more all the time and trying to max it out with an X number amount of kind of maintenance and non-emergency type calls that we can book out, and then maybe the other half of the board for more emergencies and service work. But we've added actually way more calls to our board than we used to, say, a year ago. And what we do is, and we get to a day where there's weather episodes, cold weather, hot weather, those kinds of things, and we can't possibly get to everybody that day. We want to get to the service customers. Anything that was maybe scheduled out as like a maintenance or a non-emergency, we call those people back. And actually, we set the table ahead of time when we book that maintenance call and say, kind of, we just in case of emergencies, we may need to reschedule this. So we'll max our board out as much as we can every day, and then sometimes call 10 or 12 or 15 people throughout the day to reschedule them. Say, I'm sorry, we got some bad weather going on today. We have an abundance of service, emergency calls to make. Could we please reschedule your maintenance call for a week or two down the road? And we may offer them a $10 off or something to do that if it's an inconvenience for them. Mm-hmm. But no, we're trying to max out our board every day. Now, is it 100%? Mm-hmm. No, it's not even close. Mm-hmm. But it sure works to put more calls on the board than, to really have a number to shoot for every day and to max it out and then deal with it as those days come up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Jessica, you got any comments on that?
I would have to say, I learned from Laney's. That's where I started. So
Okay.
that's exactly what works, and it's what we do too. And um, I think it's funny because if you had a technician on this call, you would have had all of them saying, "Well, of course they're 100% billable,"
Uh-huh.
but um, it's hard to maximize it, and one of the things that I have taken from working at Laney's versus a couple other heating contractors now is that importance of dispatching the technicians call by call, because if they have to call you to get their next call, they don't necessarily know how many calls are on their schedule, but you load them up or put 4 to 5 calls on their board, and all of a sudden it's amazing how no matter what those calls are, it takes 8 hours to complete those calls.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I definitely agree with Brian. It's hard, and setting setting the customer up for ahead of time, if there is an emergency that we may want to bump things ahead. People are really understanding if you're just honest up front. And
Sure.
so yeah, I mean, I would agree with them, and like I said, it's because I learned it from them.
Okay. Are
Yeah,
you
sorry, go ahead, Dwayne.
yeah, are you guys measuring this as far as in true number, as far as the productivity? You have some kind of matrix that you're utilizing?
Brian, what's your take on that? Do
I
we
think
have,
our
yeah. Or sorry.
Go ahead, Jessica.
I was going to say that I would get our controller, Jim Siebert. I know it is something we're working on to have a good dashboard of that and metrics. I think there's just so many variables that it gets hard to measure by technician and what's going on. But I know it's something we're working on, and it's a goal of ours. But Jim, do you have any input as to if we have a magic tool? He might not be on either. I'm not sure.
Well, this is Brian. Our service manager, Troy, could speak to this way better than I do. I know there's a number of things that we measure, and he's the one that keeps track of them. So I don't have a good answer to that.
Okay. That would be a nice Power BI project.
Yes.
Something that we have actually worked on with a few other service customers. So it's something that maybe at some point we can have a product out there that will be universally, it can be used within the, say the GP KeyDAC world, that you can a plug-in type visual. So it's it definitely
if it could work with it would be great if there was a tool that would work with, just integrate well with the Great Plains or Wensoft, Key to Act programming and within Great Plains, that when you have the calls scheduled versus what was on the time cards and what was billed, and then magically integrate to create those reports, that would be great.
Yeah, and then incorporate the hours paid to the technician and compare the hours billed to hours paid to get to an efficiency.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Right, and then over time you would see discrepancies. You would see, maybe you have been misbilling a certain task, going from ideal to real world applications.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. All right. So what kind of, as far as the role, and Jessica, how did you, I guess so you came from Laney and now you're at Robert Gibb. Is that what you're saying? So your role in but you're in sales. Is that, did I have that right?
Well, I'm the director of sales and service, so I manage our residential sales and our light commercial sales, and then our service department. So that would be our call center and our service technicians.
Okay.
And so when I see the question, what stresses do you have in your position? And I would say that I think I can speak for Brian and Josh on this as well, is because our roles are in service. I mean, it's just the unknown you have every day, and you just have to be flexible. And sometimes laugh so you don't cry.
Mm-hmm. So personality type, you have to be willing to flex with current situations.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, share with us, some things that that you enjoy about what you're doing.
It feels great at the end of the day, especially a busy day with weather episodes, severe cold weather and stuff. When you've gotten heat to 50 or 60 or 70 people in a given day, and customers let you know. I mean, that's really what it's all about. And sometimes I get wrapped up in those one or two negative calls. If people call in and something didn't go good, or we got a call back, and you get caught up in those. But sometimes I have to stop. And at those times we get frustrated with our technicians, or frustrated with something we did wrong, or we're angry at the customer for being too demanding. But sometimes I have to just step back and go, wow, look at how many people we got to today. Look at how many homes and small businesses we solved an issue at. And I think that's kind of the reward. And, when we make 70 or 80 calls a day here at Laney's on average, and have, not too many people calling back dissatisfied. So we got to take pride in that, feel good about that.
Okay. Well, we're running out of time here, so I want to ask one more question here. I think that it probably really it's always kind of a topic of things are different than they were a year ago. So Jessica, talk about maybe things that you're doing differently today than you were, say, a year ago, and are these things that you're going to continue to do moving forward?
Yeah, I think we've learned to, I guess in my role especially, is I've learned to sit back and listen, not only to our technicians, but to our customers more, and just being a little bit more open-minded to every situation is different. And we've learned you can't take things for granted. These service calls are in need, and we're lucky because I think fortunately for not only where we're located geographically in the United States, but our business and what we do as well is we kind of went unaffected by COVID. We didn't see a decrease in our sales or our service calls, and but we did learn that supplies were an issue, and so we've learned to keep track of our inventory better, to see what our needs are going to be and plan ahead for those type of events, installing equipment and air conditioners and coils and stuff, and just kind of just being more prepared. But really what I've learned is everyone that's going through this is struggling with different things, and just sometimes sitting back and listening to what everyone's needs are, because they're not the same.
Yeah. Josh, Brian, you got anything you want to add there?
I think remembering that, and it just touched on this as well, that the people on the other end of the line, they're human beings and they're calling us for help. And when you get past the frustration or the being stressed, and what the last year really brought out in great contrast was that these are people, they're human beings, and so are our technicians, and they are resources, but they're also resources with thoughts, feelings, hopes, and dreams. And we're here to hopefully make a better day for our technician as well as the customer. And when you do that, it actually is a fairly satisfying position to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, we've reached the end of the session here. Appreciate all of you guys from joining in here. Hopefully we can continue. I didn't have any questions this time, but definitely reach out to us, email us if you've got any questions, kind of topics that we want to kind of expand upon here, that maybe we could help each other grow as companies. That's definitely what we were about here, is how to get better and to serve our customers and to make our employees' jobs easier. I know that that there's, it's all in the circle there of if it's a win-win, we can it makes for a better life. So I know we've a couple of things I want to let you guys know about is next week we're going to have a webinar on the customer vendor consolidations. It's a nice little new tool. I've used this tool personally from where I was previously employed, so it's a very good product, and clean up a little bit of your information in your system. Another one out there that I really like that we've just come out with recently, and from the service standpoint, I think everybody would be interested in this, is the void maintenance product for your maintenance contracts. That is a long overdue product that I've installed and use in the company that I've previously worked for. They have it. It's a great product. It's something that really makes the maintenance contract process a lot easier. So a couple of things out there that we've got that we're trying to promote. So if you're interested in that, just let us know. But I think we'll probably, from Judy, you still on there?
I am. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, everyone. What wonderful knowledge you shared, and just the fulfillment of what your jobs is and what you've seen this past year even is a wonderful thing to hear from the customers. So thank you so much for doing this. And if anything that we can do to move on with these and maybe have a series, a couple of months of doing this type of thing in the service industry, let us know, and we'll be happy to help you out. Thank you and
Yes.
have a super day.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry, is there more questions?
No, I would say, just pass the information along. We'd love to have another discussion maybe a month from now, if it's possible. So if you guys got some ideas that get into some more details, I'd love to get into maybe even some things that, from the technical side that might be a little more in the weeds of what we need to use for tools. Definitely would just going to take this any direction you guys want to take it, because we're just here to help each other get better.
Thank you. Have a super day.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you.
Yeah.